Warning, we sometimes use swear words on this podcast. Cue.
I'm Liz. I'm a music supervisor.
I'm Trish. I'm a film director. And we are going to dish about music and movies and life. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Trish. How are you?
I'm good. You holding up okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good, actually.
Okay.
I'm fine, thank you. So this week, this episode's about you. We have done episodes about music clearances, music libraries, music rights. I think it's about time we did an episode about what it's like to be a director.
Yeah, we have gotten some feedback that people would like to hear that.
And I want to hear it too. I'm sure you've got lots of interesting stories. So let's start at the beginning. Who hires you? How does the process begin in you working on a film?
Well, I think I can speak for myself. I think it is definitely different for different directors and different people and even different eras. But business is changing quickly. But generally what happens for me is scripts come to me through my agent. Sometimes I get scripts from friends. I get a lot of unsolicited scripts, but for legal reasons, I'm really not supposed to even look at them, because if you acknowledge receipt of a script from somebody and then end up making a different movie that has some resemblance to it, you can be sued. They can claim that you stole their idea or whatever. So you have to be very careful about unsolicited work. So
is that people will get your email address and they'll send you something directly in your email?
Yeah. Or, people will DM you asking if they can send you scripts and stuff. And unfortunately, I have to sort of say no, not because I don't want to read people's scripts, but because for legal reasons. I think that's why a lot of the arm's lengthiness exists between sort of agents and managers and teams that help you find material. Because, no one wants their stuff stolen. Nobody wants to be accused of stealing stuff, even if they didn't. So you have to be quite careful where the material comes from. I'll read friends' scripts when I trust them and they trust me and we all can be transparent. And I have ended up developing some work of friends, but generally scripts come through my agent.
Right.
Sometimes it'll come to me directly like, hey, this is for Trish, watermarked with her name. We want her to consider this job. Sometimes it'll just be like, hey, this script is out there. Do you want to read it? And if you're interested, I can get you a meeting, that kind of thing. Sometimes scripts are in the stage where a writer is trying to find a director in order to land a producer. Sometimes a writer and producer are trying to land a director in order to sell it to a studio. Sometimes a studio has already bought and developed a script and they're just looking for a director to basically start prepping and shooting the thing. So things come to you at all different stages of development. And there are pros and cons to each stage. If you get on board with something very early, you have a lot of creative say in the direction of that script. Sometimes even who the producer is going to be or what studio it's going to go to. And that kind of creative influence is really fun and really satisfying. It also means you're probably going to be working on this thing for a long time, years, before you ever see any money, before you ever see anything real come from it. On the other hand, the first movie I ever did, Step Up All In, that was a movie that was essentially already greenlit because it was the fifth one in a series, fifth one in a franchise. And they just said, hey, we want to attach a director. This thing's already moving. And it's like 0 to 60 the minute you jump on that train. And, there's minimum script changes you can make. There's minimum development left to be done. And you have to decide whether this is the movie you want to make or not.
Right.
So I get these scripts and then some of them, it's going to be a long haul, but you love it and you're invested in the development of the thing. And sometimes it's like, hey, this is a job and this is probably going to go and it's going to go quickly and it's already been sold. And this is a more concrete opportunity and you take it.
So how do you decide what you want to work on?
That's kind of the most mysterious part of the whole process for me, because in my opinion, you don't have to love a script.
Right.
You have to see the way that script could be made into a movie, which is quite a different thing than loving a script. It's almost like if you're looking for a house. A lot of the time when you're house hunting, or maybe it's apartment hunting, you think you have an idea of what you want, and what you end up with is quite different than that. Because when you go into the place, it might not check off the boxes of the list you carefully made, and yet you can see what to do with it. You understand where everybody will sleep and how your dogs are going to do here and how the garden's going to work, how your neighbors work, how your commute is going to work. You like the light that comes through the window. You like the grocery store down the street. There are things about picking a house that kind of have nothing to do with loving the house and more about like, oh, I can see a life here.
Yeah.
And that's the same with a movie. I'm like, oh, okay, I see that this script wasn't what I thought I wanted, and it doesn't necessarily fit the bill of what I was looking for. And yet I understand how to live here. I get it. I know what this script could be. Some directors, I think, wait for the perfect script that they just love, that's a passion project. I'm more of a like, yeah, I get how to do that. I know how to make that script into a movie. And maybe more importantly, I think that's going to be fun. Because I'm more invested in whether a project is satisfying and fun than whether it turns out well. I want it to turn out well, and that's part of the fun of making a movie, is that you care. But also, I want the process to be fun. I want to picture shooting these scenes and helping actors create these characters and watching a production designer build the world that this story happens in. And I want to see that as fun. And so, the script doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be one that fits me wherever I am at the time.
How involved in the script writing process are you?
Again, it depends where you come on board. I'm developing a movie right now called Old Haunts, which is an example of a movie where I came on quite early in the process. It had a writer and a producer, but we kind of did a page one rewrite based on the version of the movie that I wanted to make. And we didn't have anybody telling us we couldn't do that because there's no studio yet.
Right.
There's no financing yet. But on the other hand, there's no promises that we will ever make that movie. Movies like Pitch Perfect 3 or Step Up 5, these franchises already exist.
Yeah.
The characters already exist. The world that they take place in already exists. You get a lot less say at that point in how much tweaking of the script to do. We still did a lot of work on both of those scripts, but there are a lot more restrictions, and there's a lot more time pressure, and there's a lot more box office pressure. Because at that point, you're already thinking about how you're going to shoot it, where you're going to shoot it, what the movie needs to make in order to break even or to make money or whatever. A movie in development is much more open-ended, right? I don't know if this movie, Old Haunts, is going to be a $10 million movie or a $30 million movie. I don't know if it's going to go to a streamer or go to a theatrical studio or go to independent financing and get made on a shoestring,
Right.
So it's all just kind of imaginary. So it just kind of depends on both how much you love it and how much you think it needs work, but also where it is in development and how likely it is. Sometimes if you go into a movie to pitch on it, my agent will warn me, they don't want to do a page one rewrite, Trish. Don't pitch for this movie if you have huge notes.
Right.
They'll do a polish. They'll tweak some of the dialogue and but they don't want to rework this script. So if you go in pitching that, you won't get the job. And sometimes it's they're open to a full rewrite. They want a director's vision from page one.
You've said that you end up making a movie 3 times. What's that process? What does that mean?
I mean, you probably honestly make it more than 3 times. You probably make it every single time you think about it. But there are 3 chunks to the process of filmmaking in my experience. There's the pre-production phase and the prep phase, which includes development. There's the actual shooting stage, and then there's editorial and finishing. And when you're prepping a movie, it's all of what we've been talking about, developing the script, but also figuring out who your team's going to be, who's going to be your cinematographer or your director of photography, who's going to be your production designer to create the look of the film and all of the sets, who's going to be your locations manager to find the locations, who's going to star in your movie, all of these different people who do the costumes and who's going to do the lighting, who's going to be your main electrician. You have to make all of these decisions. And find your locations, work with your team to get all the props, get all of the sets built and all of the accessories. Who's going to carry what purse? All of that stuff has to be decided. You go into rehearsals with the actors. If you're lucky, the writer is there with you so that you can hear when the lines are falling flat and an actor doesn't like it or can't pull off a certain line or a certain joke, and you rewrite the script as you go. So by the time you get into shooting, there's one version of the movie in your head. And if you've done your work, then pretty much everyone on your team, your department heads, your actors, everyone on your crew, your studio or whoever's financing the movie, everybody has kind of the same vision for what movie you're making.
Right.
And then you go and you shoot the thing. And shooting it is a whole different thing because stuff is going to come up. You're going to lose a location and have to scramble to replace it. Someone's going to get sick or break their leg. The weather's not going to cooperate. You're going to get a freak storm. Plus, you're going to get ideas as you go. Actors are going to improvise, or at least I like actors to improvise. Yeah. So you're going to get ideas. People are going to come up with jokes and lines and even little character details and plot points as you go. And so you have to be very flexible as you make it. Plus, just seeing the thing now on its feet, they say, right? Seeing these scenes being acted out, seeing these actors inhabit the people, seeing the lighting that was just a reference photograph 2 months ago, which is now an actual 3-dimensional lighting rig that's creating a very specific effect. You start to think differently and you start to see the movie in a new way, and it starts to tell you what it wants to do. And you sort of have to make some changes and really go with the flow while you're shooting. And when you wrap shooting, you're like, okay, we've made a movie, but you haven't. I know I've said this before. You've got essentially all of the fabric that you wove and it's sitting in a pile. And now you have to actually make the garment out of that. So the cutting process is where you take all of that stuff and you decide how you're going to tell your story with it. And it's a much more creative process than I originally imagined, because it's not just like, oh, when this actor said this line 6 times, which take do I prefer? Oh, no. It's about, should this scene be here or should we actually move it 20 minutes earlier in the story? Does this scene need to exist at all? Or do we actually need to cut it? Does this character seem cold and do we not have a way into their psyche? Do we need to warm that character up and show some side of them, even if it's just a little look here and there that softens us and makes us understand where they're coming from? You know, is this joke falling flat and we need to rework it? Are people not understanding this line, so we actually need to explain it and figure out a way, maybe even with like adding dialogue later? It's called ADR, where you add dialogue. You don't see their mouth moving, you're on the back of their head, and you add lines that help give exposition that's missing. I mean, you really do completely remake the movie. Not to mention, we all know pacing and tone is so critical to a movie. And of course, the music.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff really gets decided in post. While you're shooting, you have some idea of where your edit points are going to be and how a scene's going to move in the edit. And the more you've edited, the more you shoot with that stuff in mind. I've learned so much about how to shoot, having come from the edit room where you're thinking in a certain way. But you still don't know how fast a scene needs to move or how quickly you want to get in or out of a scene, how much of a character you're going to need to see. How long do you want to see that person walk into this room? How long do you want to linger on someone's face while they're hearing something or saying something? It all has to get decided in the edit. And then, of course, once the picture is locked, meaning you're pretty much done, or you should be done cutting it, you still have to finish all the visual effects. And even movies that don't have giant CG worlds and stuff, someone's hat didn't clear and you have to scrub out the logo. Oops, someone walked through the back of a frame with their headphones on and we know it's from the crew.
The boom mic.
Yeah, the boom mic's in the shot. Whatever. There's always cleanup work. So there's always going to be visual effects. There's, of course, the music. There's the color correction. We talked last week about Dracula 1979, how the original color timing on that film was these warm, saturated golden tones. And in the re-release 20 years later, it was very, very desaturated, almost black and white. So the way you color time or color grade the actual footage really changes the way that whole film will play and how it will look and how it will feel. Same with the sound mix. Not everybody recognizes that so much of comedy and storytelling and all the subliminal signals that we get are from sounds. Did you hear someone's footsteps over there? Therefore, we know they're over there. Did you hear somebody's keys get dropped on the table? Therefore, you know they just came from their car. You know, did you hear a siren outside? Therefore, you're on some level, you're a little more nervous or on edge. There's all of these things in the sound design that hopefully you don't notice consciously when you're watching a movie, but they're all part of the experience of how that movie lands for you. So all of these stages of finishing are absolutely just as important as shooting, just as important as prepping and developing. It's a huge part of the finished movies that we sort of take for granted.
Do you have a favorite part? Pre-production, shooting, post?
I don't think I have a favorite. I think that prep is actually the most stressful because if you do prep right, that's when you make most of the hardest decisions. That's when you actually work the longest days. I used to think that it was the actual shoot that was the longest days, but if you're prepping, you're trying to make your shoot days as streamlined as possible. It's like preparing for a wedding or preparing to move your house or something. Like the day you actually move doesn't compare to all the weeks spent packing boxes and deciding what you're going to keep and what you're going to give away or whatever. So prep is the hardest and the most stressful. Shooting is the most fun because especially if you've done your prep, you show up to work and you have to put out fires as they come up, but you know you've done your work. You have a picture of this scene in your head. You have communicated that picture to your team. You have a good rapport with your crew and with the actors, and you're finally getting to do it. That's the play stage. And then the most satisfying stage is the edit, where all of the hard work you did in prep and all of the fun of shooting now is actually turning into a real movie that's going to be seen, hopefully, by people. And so I think that's the most satisfying. So I guess if I had to choose one, I would choose the edit. But I think the edit's my favorite part only because I've been through the other two parts first.
Right. Well, talking of the edit, what have been some of the hardest cuts you've ever had to make?
That's a good... Well, on the last movie you and I did, Sitting in Bars with Cake, there is a scene, Bette Midler, Bette Midler, on a rooftop of the Dream Hotel in Hollywood with Yara Shahidi, whose character, Jane, is drunk as a skunk. And this character doesn't get drunk often. So she is sloppy, messy drunk with her best friend's boss, played by Bette Midler. And they're on top of this rooftop. And Bette Midler gives her this kind of pep talk. She actually ad-libbed a line when we were shooting it. Let your lady lion out.
Yeah.
I just love that line. She said it and then she's like, say it to me back. And Yara's like, let your lady lion out? And she's like, say it again. Let your lady lion out. Let your lady lion out. And they go back and forth. Let your lady lion out. I loved that so much that I actually, as a wrap gift for Bette Midler, had my dear friend Trace, hi Trace, in South Africa, draw a picture of Bette Midler in character in the movie saying, let your lady lion out. And like a hand-drawn picture that looked so beautiful. And I had it framed and I gave it to her as her wrap gift.
Oh, wow.
That's how sure I was that this was an iconic scene. And we cut it. It's not in the movie. We cut the whole fucking scene.
Why?
It was a great scene. Both actresses were fabulous. The views out of the Dream Hotel, you can see the Hollywood sign, you can see the Griffith Observatory, you can see all of LA. We worked our asses off to get our whole crew and all the cameras and everybody up on the roof of this building. And it's one of those times where the movie just says, no, we tried. We moved that scene around. We had it in the first act. We had it in the third. We moved it around. We tried doing different cuts of it. We tried having different songs playing behind it. You remember that stage.
Yeah, I do.
And I think it came down to the fact that at the crux of this story is a love story between two friends, Yara Shahidi's character and Odessa Azayan's character. And much as we love Bette Midler and her character in this film, we really, really needed to see the friends together at this point in their journey. And we just didn't want to be pulled out of that for a second.
Right.
And there was no way around that in the end. And no number of laughs because the scene was funny or charisma between the two actors because they were so charming together. No amount of production value from this beautiful rooftop bar in a glamorous hotel overlooking the entire city. None of that could outweigh the fact that the story in that moment wasn't about these two characters.
Yeah.
It was about two other characters. It was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah.
Another one that was really tough for similar reasons was in Pitch Perfect 3. John Lithgow plays Rebel Wilson's dad. And we have just discovered that it's her dad, and it's this fraught, ridiculous thing. And they're in this casino in the south of France, and they had a big song and dance number. And he was singing Hard for Me to Say I'm Sorry, and she was singing Don't Speak. And it was a mashup because the two songs kind of were able to, we had worked on this arrangement where we interwove the two songs. They both practiced their vocals and they practiced over and over. We had a huge dance number where they danced through this entire casino. Rebel Wilson actually did a pole dance This huge pole dance there was like a pole coming out of a roulette table. And she did this it took a whole day with rigging and everything for her to do this pole dance. She designed her dress herself. It was this beautiful silver dress. I mean, this scene took 3 days to shoot. And it was like this ridiculous, amazing song and dance number between a father and a daughter confronting their sort of fraught past and all of their tension, all of their father-daughter issues and all this shit. And it just didn't work. Like the scene itself in a vacuum was fabulous, funny, beautifully shot. The music worked. Both actors gave such great performances. The set was lovely. And yet, again, in the story, we weren't interested in that moment in those two people's relationship. Right. We were interested in something else. And therefore, people got angry. Like people literally got angry during that scene when we would show it to audiences.
Really?
On one level, they were like, oh, it's so funny. And I love John Lithgow and I love Rebel Wilson. And they're so funny together and they have such great chemistry. And the dance moves are ridiculous and preposterous and funny. And yet, fuck you for putting it in there right now. It's
So in the test screenings, that was the feedback you had.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So yeah, those were two of the really tough.
Yeah.
Because both of those were just really good scenes and legendary actors.
Yeah.
And great performances. There was nothing wrong with the scene. It just, the movie decides.
Yeah, the film tells you what it needs.
Yeah.
So what have been some challenges you faced whilst you're shooting?
Weather is always a problem.
Right.
I mentioned it before, but when we were shooting Players in New York, we had not one but 2 hurricanes come through and close us down.
Wow. Yeah,
And
I remember that.
Yeah, remember?
Yeah.
And we didn't get our days back because insurance didn't cover it and people's schedules didn't really allow it. And so we had to squinch 35 days of shooting down to 33 and a half. And that was tough. We also had crew members whose like apartments flooded and who couldn't get home. We were doing a late night shoot when the hurricanes hit. We were in this Polish American club shooting the scene where there's that chess boxing match.
Yeah.
We shot that in the Polish American club. And then in the middle of the night, we switched over to move to this bar, the bar where you're going to see the character played by Ego Nwodum out with her new boyfriend.
Right.
So it's that scene. So we moved to that bar, but the call came out in the middle of our company move. Nobody moved. No trucks, no crew. Everybody stay put for the storm. So half of us are in this bar. Half of us are in the Polish American club. Nobody can go anywhere. We're not shooting tonight, but we can't go home. So all of us in the bar just proceeded to get ripped because it was pull your own beer. And so the taps are just right there.
Wow.
So we just
How
started
long were
drinking.
you stuck there for?
We were stuck there until about 7 a.m.
From when?
From about midnight.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then some people could go home, but some people couldn't, depending on where they were living. And apartments were flooded and stuff. And we had to be back the next night to shoot again. My DP, Matt, walked the Brooklyn Bridge with a bagel. He said it was one of his finest moments in New York ever. He's like, the bagel never tasted so good as he walked across the Brooklyn Bridge.
Wow.
We all went home eventually and showed up the next night to film. Even people whose apartments were flooded, they showed up for work the next day.
Wow.
And you know the scene where Gina and Damon's characters are sitting outside the baseball stadium? Mm-hmm. That was right after the hurricane as well, the second hurricane. And that entire field was about 15 inches in water because there'd been 2 hurricanes in a row. The whole field was a swamp.
So you have to get it like drained or something?
We can't drain it. So what we ended up doing was finding the one patch of like slightly higher ground and putting like 4 tarps down under their blanket. And it wasn't the exact spot we wanted to shoot, but it was the only place we really could shoot on that whole field. And then we all had to wear Wellington boots and stand like up to our knees in water while we were shooting
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we tried to make it look, it's like this sweet.
You would never know.
But yeah, it was a swamp. That scene was an entire swamp.
Wow.
In Pitch Perfect, there were a bunch of big scenes at the end of the movie on a yacht, a super mega yacht in France. And it's very hard to shoot on a boat. You just don't really have the space to get all the equipment. And
Was it like moving around? Did you feel seasick?
Well, no, we built a yacht in a soundstage.
Oh.
And we built a tank because they have to jump off the yacht and row out to the yacht. So we built a water tank in a soundstage. That was one of my more exciting projects.
Wow.
My production designer, Toby Corbett, on that movie is fabulous. And so we built this tank. We found these sound stages. We shot that movie in Atlanta. So we found these sound stages that were pretty much brand new. There are sound stages that have water tanks, but not very many, and none of them really worked for the scale of what we were doing. So we found a sound stage, these beautiful new stages that would let us build a water tank. And we had to keep the water warm because the actors were going to be in it and all this stuff. So we built a yacht to scale in a tank in a sound stage, which was all really exciting. Presented a lot of challenges, but it was really exciting. But what's crazy is I found out after the fact when they pulled everything out after we'd shot, and this tank has been up for about 3 weeks, I think, total. We had ruined the soundstage.
How?
The humidity from having this water in there, and it wasn't built for that, rusted out everything.
Oh my
The entire
goodness.
soundstage had to be gutted, and it was brand new.
Jeez.
And it had to be gutted. We did, I think it was like $3 million of damage.
What?
Insurance paid for it, thank God.
How do you build a yacht?
They build a yacht.
How long did that take?
I mean, weeks, months.
Yeah, I mean,
The
is
prep
it
on that
weeks or
movie,
months?
I should ask Toby. I don't.
Because, I mean, I can't build a yacht in weeks, can you? Like a
I mean,
proper
they can
yacht?
do this pretty quick.
Right.
And we really kind of built the front half of the yacht.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, it's stuff like that's incredible. Like that's when you're like, oh my God, I get to work with these people that have these skills and these ideas and these visions. And it was
That's amazing.
It was pretty awesome.
Any other challenges?
I mean, there's so many. Here's a challenge that you might not think of. That's a much smaller scale challenge. When you're shooting on a street outside, it's amazing the number of people that honk at you when they go by. Honk at you.
Honk you could like, hi. Hi honk or get out the way honk?
No, honk at you like bop, 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 bop. Like I see you, film set.
Yeah.
And especially in Los Angeles, you know, we consider ourselves here to be so cynical and jaded. Like we're all so used to films. Nobody here gives a shit. Nobody gets starstruck. Nobody, you know, cranes their neck to see who's shooting when they're driving down Sunset Boulevard. So you would think in this city that we don't honk when we see a film crew. But damn if, and it ruins your take because usually you're not controlling all the traffic. It's very hard to get a permit to control the traffic on a street for a length of time. You get what's called intermittent traffic control, where when you're rolling, you might get, you know, a minute or two where you've got people on the other end of the block stopping traffic temporarily. But in a big city like New York or LA, they're rarely going to say, yeah, you can close this street for the day. So you usually have real traffic going by and they honk. And it just sucks because it distracts the crew. It distracts the actors. It ruins your sound design. So you have to go back and, like I said, do dialogue replacement or sometimes the actors will just stop. Really seasoned actors will stop and just repeat their line again.
Right.
And not even miss a beat. But it's crazy how, so next time anybody who's listening to it, if you're tempted to drive by and be like, toot, toot, like you would when you see protesters or, you know, a picket line, don't honk.
Don't honk.
No.
I mean, look, I've worked with you on several films and I've been on set with you and you have people coming at you all the time, all the different departments asking you lots of different questions. You kind of got to be on. And it amazes me how you can switch from one thing to another. You know, you've got cinematographer, production design, whatever, me coming at you with music questions. How do you deal with all of that stress and keep on top of it all?
I think when you do your job prepping, a lot of that is easier because now at least you're just dealing with things in the moment that have come up rather than things that should have been decided a week ago, a month ago, 2 months ago. So my biggest stress ally is a really good preparation. But I do get stressed sometimes, and I will say animals. Animals help so much. You can't, unless you're shooting at home, you can't go home to your animals. So you're losing that part of your grounding system. So I love animals. And if there's ever an animal in the movie, I will like glom onto that animal
really
so hard. And I will tell you one time in Pitch Perfect, this is again Pitch Perfect, we had a cow in the movie. And the cow was only there for a day or two. But the animal handler who brought the cow was caring for a baby goat that she was also training to be a movie goat, which, I mean, best job in the world. And so she had to keep this goat with her because she had to feed it every couple of hours and she had to acclimate it to a set. So she had brought this goat along.
Right.
I didn't know about that. Nobody would tell me because they knew that I was going to be completely distracted and unable to function if I knew there was a baby goat on the premises. And we were in the middle of a huge amount of stress. We were getting towards the end of the shoot. We were doing the yacht stuff, a lot of special effects, a lot of amazing stunts happening. God, stunt people are so inspirational. But so it was really stressful. And I went back to my trailer. I asked my assistant, Victoria, I said, Victoria, just give me a 15-minute power nap. Can you wake me up in like 15 minutes? 15 minutes later, I'm awoken by this like gentle nuzzling. And I'm like, what is it? And it's Victoria holding this baby goat right to my face.
Oh.
I instantly began weeping. Now we're about 3 to 5 days from the end of our shoot. We're exhausted. We've been shooting. We've been prepping. We've been living in Atlanta for months. It's cold. We're exhausted. So my emotional resources were so depleted. And I just wept and clung to this goat. I said, they got me a goat. They got me a goat. And I thought that this was my wrap gift. I thought that I was going to get to take this goat home. And that because everybody knows I love goats, and Rune knew I wanted a goat. And I was like, they've brought me a fucking goat and this is my goat. And I was clinging to this thing. And Victoria got this weird look on her face. I saw her face go white and she's like, it's not yours. Your goat. You just get to hold it for a minute. And now my tears of like warm, fuzzy joy and relief turned to rage. Like, how dare you bring me a goat in this moment and I don't get to keep it. And so I wouldn't give the goat back. It was crazy. They had to like wrench it away from me. And then worse yet, about a week later when I finally got to come home, and I've been away from my family and my animals for so long, Rue had arranged to have a donkey at the house for me to meet. And like you, I love donkeys. So there's this donkey named Burrito who can be available for rent for birthday parties or whatever. Yes.
Okay, I need to know about this.
I'll give you the details. Yeah. So Burrito, when I came home from the airport, Burrito was on my front porch. But Victoria, my assistant, had called Rue and said, the first thing you need to say to her, this is not your donkey. You do not get to keep. She was like, you don't want to see her when she thinks the farm animal is hers to keep. So the first thing I'm like, oh my God, a donkey. He's like, it's not your donkey. It's a loner donkey. Just here to greet you. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So what are some exciting moments that have had at any point on a film? I'm sure there's loads on set, but...
There are so many exciting moments about making a movie. I think that's why all of us who do this for a living, no matter what your role is, love this business, because you never know what's going to happen. And you're continually inspired by, like I said, you're inspired by stunt people who can pull off these incredible feats. You're inspired by lighting designers who can make these beautiful lighting effects. You're inspired by people who can do hair and makeup and who know how to run an electrical grid in the middle of a, forest. It's an inspiring and exciting experience. I will say, I think the most exciting thing that's happened to me on a set was when we were shooting Players. We were in New York. There's a guy named Radio Man. Have you heard of this guy?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know if people outside of New York know about this. I didn't know about it. There's a guy named Radio Man. He was a homeless man who was a big film buff. And whenever there was a shoot going on anywhere in New York, he would show up. He's called Radio Man because he shows up on his bike with a boombox hanging from his neck, playing music. And he'd show up just to watch the movies being shot.
Right.
Eventually, he started getting walk-on parts and cameos in movies. He's been in over 150 movies. He is no longer homeless. He's now a member of SAG. He has an apartment in Brooklyn. He calls a few people in the morning to find out who's shooting because he has the in with all the producers and crews. And he'll show up and everybody welcomes him with open arms. He's been in like Spider-Man 3, The Bourne Supremacy, Godzilla, Zoolander.
As himself, or he plays different
roles? He usually
roles?
plays someone kind of like himself.
Right.
He actually went to the Oscars as Whoopi Goldberg's date on the year that she was hosting it.
No.
Yeah, this guy's a legend. So he showed up at our set one day. So I didn't know about this guy. We're about halfway through our shoot. We were shooting at the Guggenheim, which is obviously a beautiful and fabulous location in Manhattan. And while we were setting up outside, because we had a scene outside the front door, everybody on set starts whispering and going crazy and whispering and going crazy. And I thought, oh man, is it the paparazzi? Because sometimes the paparazzi will come trying to shoot your stars or whatever. And sometimes, one of the actors is dating someone very high profile and that person's on set.
Right.
Like, film crews are pretty unflappable. They've seen a lot of famous people. They don't really give a shit about famous people. So I was like, why this buzz? What's going on? Radio Man is here. Radio Man. Radio Man. I'm like, what? Here comes this guy on his bike with his boombox. And he shows up, and apparently to be graced by Radio Man, it's good luck. It's like your good luck charm. It's like the Pope blessing you.
What?
It's so when he showed up and he stayed we were shooting through the middle of the night. So he stayed for what was called dinner, but it was like, 2:00 in the morning. And it felt like the New York film scene had embraced us. It felt like we were the real deal when Radio Man showed up.
Did you speak to Radio Man?
He doesn't really want to speak to you.
Oh.
No. We did. I think we did ask him if he wanted to be in the movie, and he didn't.
Right.
So
have you met any other interesting characters?
I mean, so many. Film sets are just full of interesting characters. One person who sticks in my mind is this guy named Randy Jablonka. I met him in Vancouver when we were shooting Step Up All In. He was an eye light specialist. Sometimes you see in a film someone's eyes are really lit up.
Oh, yeah.
Almost different. It's a sort of noir thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of out of style right now unless it's a very, very heightened type of movie. But, it used to be a thing, and it's quite a difficult job because it has to smoothly follow the actor's motions and not draw attention to itself while the actor is, looking different directions and moving around. So he was an eye light specialist, but he was also an electrician and a all-around guy on the crew. But what I loved about Randy, he had branded himself as the soldier for Hollywood. Now, what this means...
The soldier for Hollywood.
The soldier for Hollywood. He has a website. I'm going to drop it in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah, I urge everyone to visit it. He was so in love with the filmmaking process that he woke up every morning with just this joy for coming to work. He wore full regalia. He would show up with knee pads, with every kind of gel and scissors and flashlight and tool you could need strapped to his body. He had this vest, this tool vest, and then he had these cargo shorts just stuffed with everything. Normally on a film set, crew have gloves and tape, gaff tape.
And
whatever.
a belt.
Yeah, a belt with stuff. No, this is like next level. And he would wear this sort of military-looking cap. Legend had it that when the soldier for Hollywood left his house for work in the morning, if it was still dark, he would have pyro outside his garage as he left to celebrate. Also, on the weekends, he would wear 3-piece like swinger zoot suits all the time, no matter where he went. It was like a uniform, just the way his Soldier for Hollywood uniform would be in play during the week. 3-piece suits and nothing less. And I know this for a fact because he showed me lots of pictures of himself on the weekend, but also he showed me a video of his closet, which was the extra bedroom in his home that he had transformed into an entire closet with double swinging glass doors and a rack, like a motorized rack, the way they have in a dry cleaner. Yeah. So he would push a button and all of his hundreds of vintage suits would swing past and he would select one. The thing that was inspiring about Randy Jablonka, the Soldier for Hollywood, was that level of commitment to your craft and your vision. And he would just show up for work every day, so fucking pumped to be there.
Right.
And to know that people are that inspired to make movies. He has a shop on his website, or at least he used to, where you can buy Soldier for Hollywood merchandise. Because his tagline is, if there's a second take, it better not be because of you. And he has that on like pillows, throw blankets, water bottles, baby onesies.
Do you have some of those here?
Yeah, I do.
I know you do.
He's just an inspiration. There's people like that on set that, never really get the limelight in the same way that the actors do.
Well, tell us about a few, like some interesting jobs that maybe people don't know about on set.
There are so many. Like, for instance, greens people.
Right.
What is that? Someone whose entire job is to deal with the plants on a set, whether it's house plants, plants that you see outside a window, plants outside. Sometimes, like when we were shooting Pitch Perfect, we were shooting Atlanta in the winter for the south of France in the spring. Atlanta in the winter doesn't look like the south of France in the spring. Sometimes the greens people had to tie leaves to leafless trees, one by one.
No.
One by one, tie leaves onto empty tree branches to make it look like spring. Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff, like someone whose entire job, you'll see them pull up with a truck full of ficus hedges because, oh, look, outside this window, you can see our camera truck or whatever. Okay, we're going to put greens out there, and you just, here they come with all of their...
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to rent this house because it's so cute, but look, we don't like the landscaping. They'll re-landscape the whole thing on the morning of your shoot. Wow. Yeah, so there's greens people. There's something called a breakdown artist. What is that? Okay, here we're going to buy this shirt for this character to wear. Cool. But it looks brand new. Someone's got to take that shirt and make it look like something people actually have in their closet. So there's a whole process. They call it teching it down sometimes, aging it, dyeing it. And it's not just clothes. They'll do it to, you paint a room. Okay, we want this room to be blue in this scene. Great. But how do you make it not look like we just painted it blue yesterday? So there's patinas that go on things. Oh, we built a brick wall, but we don't want it to look like a new brick wall. It's an old brick wall. There's a whole art form to aging things.
Yeah.
And they're called a breakdown artist. Sometimes you have to have a Humane Society rep there. Because if you're going to have animals, you want to be signed off by the Humane Society that no animals were harmed.
Yeah.
So you have someone whose whole job, it's not an animal wrangler. That's different. Like the woman who brought the goat. No, you just need a representative whose whole job is a film rep. They come and watch and make sure that no animals are harmed. For instance, in Sitting in Bars with Cake, people may not have noticed that there's a snake in that movie. It's my snake, Diane.
Aww.
So my husband Rue goes by in one of the scenes late in the movie there in Santa Monica on the beach, and these two eccentric people go past, and one of them's got a snake around their neck, and that's Rue with our snake. And we thought because it's my husband and my snake, we can just fly that in there, no problem. But nope, you got to call the Humane Society. So the woman who came sat all day playing with my snake. With Odessa Azayan loves snakes.
Really?
So Odessa, who's the actor who plays Corinne, Odessa and the Humane Society representative and Diane the snake spent all day on the beach. That was that person's job for the day. And then, of course, there's things like the intimacy coordinators. We all know about how, what a crazy job that is.
But that's kind of like a newish job, isn't it? I mean, I know I mentioned on Bound the other week, they had a kind of intimacy coordinator, but you have to have it on every film now, don't you?
Well, I think this is a probably good response to the sort of Me Too-ishness of actresses and actors being asked to do things that they weren't comfortable with or agreeing to the way a scene was going to go and then having it changed on them or having cruel tricks played and abuses of people's trust. So I think that's where a lot of this comes from, and it's probably a good idea. I will say I've only had one experience with an intimacy coordinator on Players. Gina Rodriguez's character and Tom Ellis's character, they have sex. And I think you kind of by law have to include an intimacy coordinator essentially. And so I called a couple and talked to them, and it was just so amazing what the conversation is like, because this person says to you, yeah, well, what I do is I go in there and I sit down with each actor and we talk about, all right, what are you comfortable with? Will you do fingers in the mouth? Will you do fingers in the butt? Will you do snapping of the bra? Will you do like, are you comfortable with pulling of the hair? Are you comfortable squeezing of the nipple? And I was like, whoa, what? And so I went to Gina and Tom and I was like, so here's some of the candidates for intimacy coordinator. And I could kind of see that both of them were like, ugh. Not because of that particular person. I just think the idea of it didn't appeal to them. And so in that case, we decided to forego the intimacy coordinator. And instead, the three of us just sort of discussed what the boundaries were and how we were going to shoot this scene. And we did not use an intimacy coordinator. And I find that that's how it's been for me. Like, I haven't done any really graphic sex scenes, and that's probably very different. But it seems like just adding another person to an already awkward mix in some cases. If people feel safer that way, then 100% that's what they should do. And sometimes people just would rather talk about it with me or with, our DP, like whoever's going to be directly involved in the shooting and creating of that scene. Let's make some rules. Let's make it safe, but let's also not make it any weirder than it already is. Sex scenes are so weird. Sometimes actors know each other already. They've been in movies or they're friends and they're very comfortable with each other. And someone doing a checklist of whose fingers get to go in whose mouth just makes things even weirder.
I always think, right, if you've got to do a scene where you have to like snog someone. I read something the other day. Someone was like, you got to have, brushing the teeth.
Oh, yeah.
Mouthwash. And then someone said they put chewing gum on the roof of their mouth.
Yeah.
To keep it like super fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of tricks. Listerine breath strips are really good for that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see different actors' approaches because sometimes some actors are like, they love to shoot kissing, making out, sex scenes. Like it's fun for them and they're completely fine with it and they love it. That's their favorite day. Most actors are nervous about it. And some of them have spouses who don't love this for them, and might even be on set that day. And also just, there's a lot of people around and you close the set. There's only the minimal personnel in the actual room, but they're aware of the number of people thinking about what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And going to see it later. And it's just a lot of pressure for actors. So it's actually hard for me to watch sex scenes without just thinking about what it was like to shoot it, both for the actors and the crew. And yeah.
Well, then that would kind of take you right out of the sex scene, wouldn't it, really?
It takes you out of it in the way that it's more cringy usually than sexy, but it's also super interesting.
Yeah.
Because I like to think about the choices people made and the way they decided to handle it. And I like to try and guess what kind of vibe it was for those actors. Like how choreographed was this? How spontaneous was this? Usually the best sex scenes are very choreographed. Because what feels good isn't usually what looks good. So usually the best sex scenes are very mechanical. The ones that turn out the best are very mechanical. Yeah. And not necessarily the most fun to shoot, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning when you started directing. You started on videos.
Yeah, I did music videos for the band OK Go.
That's right. And I've said this to you before. Some of those videos, the one on the airplane is one of my favorite videos ever. I think it's fantastic. And the treadmill one, they were amazing, so creative. They were your ideas, were they? You came up with the concept for all of those videos. They were kind of quite groundbreaking at the time, but also, how did you make those happen?
Those are very collaborative experiences with the band. I grew up with those guys. My brother's in the band, and I've known those guys for many, many years. So that felt like an extension of the kind of stuff you do when you're a kid. Like let's build a time machine when you come over to sleep over this weekend. Let's have a pirate ship for the bunk bed.
But they were, some of those videos are really complex.
They are complex. They are, yeah. Yeah. And increasingly so, because once you've done a dance video, now what? Well, treadmills. Once you've done it with treadmills, now what? Well, dogs. All right. Once you've done it with dogs, now what? Well, plexiglass. All right. Once you've done it with plexiglass, now what? I don't know, like an airplane in zero gravity. You just keep finding new things to play with that seem exciting to you and hope that other people will also find it exciting. They are hard. Like they're probably harder than a movie.
Yeah. I was going to say, is it harder to do those promo videos than do a film? I know it's probably a much shorter process.
I think it might be kind of the difference between a haiku and a novel, right? Like in a haiku, every word counts so much and it has to be so loaded. You can't make any mistakes. You have such a short span of time in which to say so much and get so much across. Whereas a novel, you can kind of relax into the characters. You can build an arc. You can see the evolution of something. And so it's just so different. I think I'm more comfortable in long form because I really like characters. I really like seeing somebody progress over time. I really like a running joke or seeing where somebody lives, and in a music video, especially an OK Go video, it is more like a haiku. You got to be so condensed. It's like we were talking about flavor extracts last week. It is like pure extract. There's no room for anything but the essence of the thing. And that puts a lot of pressure on you. And there isn't the same, like I said, my favorite part of the process is probably the edit. There is no real edit to an OK Go video, right? It's usually one shot and it's all one choreography in real time. So that remaking the thing later doesn't happen. So for better or for worse, you know exactly what you're making while you make it.
Right.
And I kind of like being able to reinvent it later, having some time to sleep on it, coming back to it, showing it to people, getting feedback, reworking it a bit, taking a different approach to that character or that scene. You can't really do that with a music video, at least not an OK Go music video.
Right. So we've had a tough year, 18 months in our industry. What do you think the future of our industry is going to look like?
Ooh, it has been tough going from COVID into the strikes, into the fires. I I have no idea.
No.
I think the one thing I can say is I don't think it's dead. It feels dead to people in a lot of ways. And there's lots of mergers and consolidations of studios, and it's a very unstable time. But people like to make stuff, and people like to watch stuff.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the days of movie studios the way we knew them, and Hollywood being the center of the entertainment industry in the United States the way we knew it, that might be over. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know people will keep making things. And there is so much power in that. And there is so much technology available now. You can shoot movies on phones. You can shoot movies on these little, Sony has this new camera. It's tiny. And there's adapters you can shoot with all the vintage lenses and make these beautiful movies on this little camera. I mean,
what?
And of course, editing software and our access to music. And there's never been sort of a more fertile time to make stuff. And now it's just about what are the rules around making stuff. And far be it from me to say what the rules are, but I do feel bad for people who are just getting into this industry now, who turn to people for answers and there aren't any. Turn to people for a roadmap and there isn't one.
Yeah.
And
I mean, do you have any words of advice or anything for aspiring filmmakers?
Probably the same advice everybody gives, which is don't wait for the perfect script or the perfect opportunity. Don't wait until you have all the fancy equipment. Don't wait for the huge budget or the permission. Just keep making stuff because, like I said, people want to make stuff. People want to see stuff. So do it. And if you have to have a job as a substitute teacher or a mail carrier or an accountant or, okay, have a job and you can still make stuff. And it might take a long time to support yourself with it. Maybe you don't even want to support yourself with it because that puts a lot of pressure. But make stuff. I can't tell you where it will go and I can't tell you what the best way to do it is because fuck if I know. But I do know that you should just do it, whatever that looks like. And don't be precious. Don't be perfect. Nobody's perfect, but don't even try. Just churn it out. How about a cocktail, Liz?
Always.
Now, I call this one the Soldier for Hollywood.
Okay.
Because it will put a bit of hair on your chest.
Oh, crikey.
It will put a bit of gaff tape in your pocket. Oh, by the way, one more thing about the Soldier for Hollywood. He greets you every morning like, morning, Captain.
Okay.
And you have to greet him, morning, soldier. That's how he likes to be greeted. Anyway, this is the Soldier for Hollywood in honor of Randy Jablonka. So in movies, your last shot is the martini shot because that's when the director would traditionally have a martini because by the time that martini hits, you're wrapped for the day.
Yeah.
So this is our martini shot. So it is a take on a martini. Cheers.
Cheers. Crikey. Woo. That's got a bit of a kick.
So it's a vodka martini with Lillet instead of vermouth and some cardamom extract and some ginger syrup. So it's a ginger cardamom martini.
Oh my goodness.
Do you hate it?
I'm not a fan of cardamom, but I can't taste it that much in here.
I like it.
I quite like
This
it.
is actually, this
nice.
appeals to me.
I mean, your success rate is very high.
I like when you say that. Thanks.
It's favorite thing time.
Yes.
And it's you this week.
I feel like I've done a lot of talking. I'm sorry, everyone.
No, it's great. It's fab. It's interesting. Tell us what your favorite thing is.
Well, given the fact that the world feels, a little challenging for many people right now, I have turned to something, maybe everybody knows about this. It's an online magazine called Reasons to be Cheerful.
Oh, yes. I have heard about this.
David Byrne started this.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And it's really fucking lovely.
Yeah.
I know all the algorithms are optimized for outrage and bad news and bleak apocalyptic things, but the world does want good news and there are people servicing that. This is one of the better versions, I think. I mean, I'm just scrolling through and looking at some of the stories that they have covered lately. Inside Africa's trailblazing solar repair movement, clothing recycling taking a giant leap forward, a focus on recognizing Canada's first responders, New York's first guaranteed income program, which is a lifeline for the homeless population. In Sweden, drones are beating ambulances to the scenes and saving lives. the perks of roommates with 50-year age differences, this kind of thing. And one thing that I loved when I was reading about how David Byrne started this, he's like, I not only want it to be good news, but I want it to be the type of thing that is duplicatable. It's not just a one-off, hey, here's someone with a really good heart or a really generous spirit doing a good thing. That's nice. But instead, this is entire communities and collaborative efforts that are working and that could be repeated in other places so that we can learn from something and take inspiration and not just feel like, oh, right, there are some good people in the world. But most of these are like local and regional stories of communities that are working together to solve a problem. And we can take inspiration from them, but we can also literally learn, start this type of program, use these kind of incentives. Here's some technology that could work for you too. Like it's a very useful, practicable type of good news. And I urge everybody to spend some of your day, instead of just doom scrolling, taking in some of this content.
Yeah. It's great, actually. It's funny. You've just reminded me of it again, because I was looking at it and then I don't know why I haven't for a while. So I'm going to just get back to it. It was really interesting. It kind of lifted my spirits. It was nice. And we need that more than ever right now.
We do. I was following it for a long time too, and had also forgotten about it. And it wasn't getting served up on my algorithm.
No, not on mine now.
And so that's why I am reminding myself about its existence. And so people out there that probably know about it, but might also have forgotten, go check it out.
Let's put a link in the show notes.
We will.
It's tarot time.
It's tarot time. What are we thinking about this week?
I think we need some reasons to be cheerful. What do you think?
Yeah, we always do.
All right, so Katie Lou, you're going to pull a card?
Oh my God.
What?
It's giving us the 9 of Swords.
Why is that not good?
It's a really dark card.
God, are there any nice cards? All we're getting is dark cards all the time.
So I'm trying to put a positive spin on the 9 of Swords. And I'll say this. The 9 of Swords might reflect exactly how we actually feel. And that is always nice, to have someone acknowledge your reality. It's a card about really being upset and stuck in dark thoughts and dark times. So sometimes it's nice to just have someone say, I see you, right? The deck is saying, like, I see that this is tough. But I think what it's also saying is, one, this is largely about your thoughts, and you do have some control over that. So we need to consume some positive stuff, not just get in a spiral of dark, negative, cynical hopelessness. So it's really important that all of us manage the balance of the light and the dark in our own thoughts to the best that we can. You know, for people that have lost their homes or their businesses or dealing with really grave stuff, I don't mean to sugarcoat it and pretend like, hey, toxic positive Trish is here to make everything okay. But I do think as times are dark, it's important for us to remember how powerful our own minds are for setting the stage for our experience. And when something ends, something new begins. And sometimes the darkest hour is right before the dawn, as they say. A morning comes after a rough night, a morning comes.
Okay, thank you.
Liz, record of the week. Is it going to cheer us up?
Yeah, this is going to cheer you up.
Great.
It's called Extraordinary Wings, and it's by Heartworms.
What's cheerier than Heartworms?
It's out now on Speedy Wonderground. What an amazing name for a record label.
That is a great name.
Speedy Wonderground.
Yeah.
It's from the album Glutton for Punishment, which came out a few weeks ago. Heartworms, I think, sounds a bit like LCD Sound System, some early PJ Harvey, has a bit of a whiff of Depeche Mode in there too.
Okay.
Really cool. She's a really interesting, cool new artist, and she has a real vision in her music, and it kind of really draws you in. So I want to thank Fergs at 3000 Years Publishing, and I want to shout out my old friend Caroline, who started 3000 Years Publishing a while back, and I believe she listens to the podcast. She's in Manchester. I found this track. I didn't know it was anything to do with her, and I found it reached out to Speedy Wonderground, and then I heard back from Fergs, who works with Caroline, and was like, this is our publishing.
Wow.
So I was like, this is fantastic. And I worked with Caroline 20 years ago. So I'm chuffed to be able to play one of her artists on our show. And it's cool. I love this new artist.
That's awesome. That is going to cheer us up. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, have a great week, everyone. We will.
See you next Tuesday.
Right on cue.
music got no right.
On Cue is produced and edited by Kathleen Gallacher.